The great hall of the Galactic Council had never seen such chaos. 12 different species filled the massive chamber, their voices mixing into a terrible sound of fear and anger. Some delegates floated in the air, others crawled on multiple legs, and a few looked almost human except for their strange-colored skin and extra eyes. At the center of it all sat the emergency assembly table, a perfect circle made of crystal that could translate any language spoken by the council members. Today, that crystal glowed red with warning lights, showing just how serious this meeting was. Ambassador Tae-min from Earth sat in the corner, watching everything with quiet eyes. His simple black uniform looked plain next to the fancy clothes and metal suits worn by other delegates. Behind him stood two other humans, a woman with short hair wearing a military uniform and an older man in a white lab coat. None of them spoke. They just watched and listened. "We are all going to die," screamed the delegate from the Zephyrian colonies. He looked like a giant insect with wings, and his voice made a buzzing sound when he talked. "The Vorthak war fleet grows bigger every day. They have already eaten 3 entire star systems." The word eaten was not just a way of speaking. The Pasaya Vorthak were known across the galaxy for turning entire planets into food. They would land on a world, consume every living thing, then strip the planet of all its metals and resources before moving on to the next target. Council Speaker Veltharion raised one of his many tentacles for silence. He was from an ancient species that lived underwater on their homeworld, but could breathe air when needed. His skin was dark purple and covered in strange markings that changed color when he was upset. "We must stay calm," Veltharion said, though his own markings were flashing bright red with worry. "Our combined fleets still number in the thousands. Surely we can find a way to fight back." "Fight back with what?" The voice came from Ambassador Jiwoo of the Centauri Federation. She was one of the few delegates who looked almost human, except her skin was pale blue and she had no hair at all. "The Vorthak have quantum devastator weapons. They can tear holes in space itself. Our weapons bounce off their ships like raindrops." This was true, and everyone in the room knew it. The Vorthak had been conquering worlds for over 1,000 years. Their technology was so advanced that most species could not even understand how it worked. They had never been defeated in battle, never retreated, never shown mercy. "What about the Alterian Republic?" asked a small creature that looked like a walking crystal. "Your people control energy itself. Surely you can stop them." The Alterian delegate glowed brighter for a moment, which was how his people showed emotion. "We tried. We sent our best energy masters against one Vorthak scout ship. The ship absorbed our attacks and used our own power against us. We lost an entire squadron." Fear filled the room like a cold wind. If the Alterians could not fight the Vorthak, then nobody could. The Alterians were one of the most powerful species in the Council. They had been controlling energy and electricity for millions of years. "Then what do you suggest?" Veltharion asked. "Should we just surrender and hope they kill us quickly?" "The Vorthak do not kill quickly," said another delegate in a whisper. This one looked like a floating ball of gas held together by some kind of force field. "They keep some of us alive to work as slaves. The rest become food for their young." Everyone had heard the stories. Entire civilizations wiped out. Their people turned into cattle farms for the Vorthak breeding colonies. It was the stuff of nightmares. "There must be something we can do," Jiwoo said. Her voice was getting higher with panic. "Some weapon we have not tried. Some alliance we have not made." "We have tried everything," Veltharion said sadly. "We have combined our technologies, shared our weapons, joined our fleets. Nothing works against them. The Vorthak War Master Keth Morden sent us a message yesterday. We have 1 week to decide. Either we give them half of all our worlds, or they take all of them by force. The room fell silent. Half of all their worlds meant billions of people would die. But if they refused, everyone would die anyway. What about asking for help from outside the council? Someone suggested. From who? Veltharion asked. Every strong species is already a member. The ones outside the council are either too weak to help or too far away to reach us in time. All eyes slowly turned to look at the human delegation. Earth had joined the council only 50 years ago, which made them one of the newest members. Most species thought of humans as a minor player in galactic politics. They had decent technology and were good at making deals, but they were not considered a military power. Ambassador Taemin noticed the attention and stood up slowly. He was not tall, but something about the way he moved made everyone pay attention. His dark hair was cut short and neat, and his eyes seemed older than his face. "The council is looking at us," Taemin said in a calm voice. "Why?" "Your species has shown remarkable creativity in the past," Veltharion said carefully. "Perhaps you have ideas that we have not considered." Taemin was quiet for a long moment. Behind him, the woman in the military uniform whispered something in his ear. The man in the white coat nodded and pulled out a small device that he looked at carefully. "Humanity will consider your proposal," Taemin said finally. "But we need time to discuss this among ourselves." "How much time?" Jiwoo asked quickly. "We only have 6 days left before the Vorthak deadline." 1 week, Taemin said. "I request that this assembly be put on hold for 7 days. When we return, humanity will have an answer." Veltharion looked surprised. 7 days? But that is longer than the Vorthak deadline. "Yes," Taemin said. His voice was still calm, but there was something in his eyes that made several delegates step back. "I assume the council can buy us 1 extra day." There was more arguing, but in the end, everyone agreed. What choice did they have? The humans were the only ones who had not said the situation was hopeless. Maybe they really did have some idea that could save them all. As the assembly ended and delegates began to leave, Ambassador Jiwoo walked over to Taemin. "You realize this is probably hopeless, right?" she said quietly. "The Vorthak have never been defeated. They have been conquering worlds since before my species learned to make fire." Taemin looked at her with that same calm expression. "Has anyone ever really tried to defeat them?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, has anyone ever really studied them? Really prepared for them? Or has everyone just assumed they cannot be beaten?" Jiwoo did not have an answer for that. As she watched the human delegation leave the chamber, she wondered what they could possibly be planning. Earth was a young world with no ancient weapons or lost technologies. What could they do that the great powers of the galaxy could not? She did not know that deep in the ruins of Mars, human scientists had been studying artifacts left behind by a civilization that had once faced the Vorthak and lost. But that civilization had not given up before learning some very important secrets about their destroyers. Secrets that humanity was about to put to use. 7 days passed like a bad dream for the Galactic Council. Nobody slept well. The Vorthak deadline was now only hours away, and still no word from the human delegation. Some delegates had already started making plans to evacuate their home worlds. Others sent secret messages to the Vorthak, hoping to make private deals for their people's lives. Ambassador Jiwoo spent most of her time staring out the great windows of the council station, watching ships come and go. Many were leaving, carrying important people and valuable cargo away from the core worlds. The smart ones were already running. When the emergency assembly was called back into session, the chamber felt different, half empty. Many delegates had not returned, choosing instead to spend what might be their last days with their families. Those who did come back looked tired and hopeless. Veltharian's skin markings were pale gray, the color his people turned when they had given up hope. "The deadline is in 6 hours," he announced to the room. "If the human delegation does not have a solution, we must vote on surrender terms." The doors to the chamber opened, and Ambassador Taemin walked in. This time he was not alone. Behind him came Admiral Haya Jin of the Terran Defense Force and Chief Scientist Dr. Dong-Woo. The Admiral was a tall woman with sharp eyes and gray hair pulled back in a tight knot. The scientist was older, with kind eyes behind wire glasses, but something about his smile made several aliens uncomfortable. Taemin walked to the center of the chamber and looked around at the assembled delegates. His face was calm, just like before, but now there was something else in his expression. Confidence. "Honored delegates," Taemin began. "Humanity has studied your problem very carefully. We have reviewed all available data on the Vorthak threat, their weapons, their tactics, and their history." "And?" Veltharian asked impatiently. "What is your conclusion?" Taemin smiled a small smile. "Humanity offers to handle the Vorthak threat. Completely. Alone." The chamber exploded into noise. Delegates jumped to their feet. Tentacles waved in. The air and several species made sounds that their translators could not even convert into words. "What did you say?" Jiwoo gasped. "You heard correctly," Admiral Hyejin said, stepping forward. Her voice was cold and professional. "The Terran Defense Force will deal with the Vorthak invasion fleet. We will eliminate the threat to Council. Space." Veltharian's tentacles writhed in what humans had learned was laughter among his people. But this laughter was bitter and sad. "Young species, we appreciate your courage, but you do not understand what you are facing. The Vorthak fleet contains millions of ships. Their weapons can destroy entire stars. Your fleet is... how many ships? A few hundred?" "Our fleet size is classified," Admiral Hyejin replied. "But yes, we understand the odds." "Then you understand." "This is suicide," said the crystalline delegate. "Noble suicide, perhaps, but still suicide." Dr. Dongwu stepped forward and activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber. It showed a detailed map of the galaxy with the Vorthak fleet marked as a massive red cloud moving toward Council space. "Before we proceed," Dr. Dongwu said in a gentle voice, "humanity has certain requirements that must be met." "Requirements?" Veltharian's skin markings flashed angry yellow. "You are asking for payment to commit suicide?" "We are asking for payment to save your civilizations," Taemin corrected. "The price is non-negotiable." Admiral Hyejin began listing their demands. "First, humanity requires exclusive mining rights to the entire Kepler 442 system. All existing claims by other species will be transferred to Earth." Several delegates started to protest, but Taemin held up his hand. "Second, all human vessels will have complete diplomatic immunity throughout Council space. Our ships may go anywhere and do anything necessary for galactic security. Third, Dr. Dongwu added. Earth demands a permanent seat on the Council's inner circle, with full access to all classified information and veto power over military decisions. The inner circle was the secret group of the 5 most powerful species that really controlled the Council. Getting a seat there usually took thousands of years and the support of multiple major civilizations. Humanity was asking for it as payment for a suicide mission. And finally, Admiral Hyejin said, her voice getting even colder, no Council fleet will follow us or interfere with our operations in any way. Our methods are our own business. The chamber was quiet for a long moment. Then Jiwoo asked the question everyone was thinking. That's it? Mining rights, diplomatic immunity, a council seat, and privacy? For taking on the greatest threat in galactic history? That's it, Taemin confirmed. This is insane, muttered the Alterian delegate. You are asking for rewards that should take centuries to earn in exchange for throwing your lives away. Are we throwing our lives away? Dr. Dongwu asked with that unsettling smile. You seem very sure about that. Of course you are. Veltharian's skin was now flashing bright red. The Vorthak have never been defeated. Their quantum devastator weapons can tear holes in reality itself. They have conquered for 1,000 years. Yes, Admiral Hyejin said quietly. We know. Something about the way she said it made the room fall silent. There was no fear in her voice, no doubt, no sadness about impending doom. She spoke like someone discussing the weather. You really think you can win? Jiwoo asked in a whisper. Admiral, Heejin looked at her for a long moment. We think a lot of things. The vote was quick. What choice did they have? The Vorthak deadline was now only 3 hours away. Either they let the humans try their impossible mission, or they surrendered half their worlds and hoped the Vorthak kept their word. The final vote was unanimous. Yes. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, many stopped to shake Taemin's hand or touch him gently with tentacles, claws, or energy fields. It was their way of saying goodbye to a dead man walking. Jiwoo was the last to leave. I still think this is suicide, she told Taemin, but I admire your courage. Thank you, Taemin replied. But courage has nothing to do with it. Then what does? Taemin exchanged a look with Admiral Hyejin and Dr. Dongwu. All 3 humans smiled the same small, confident smile. Preparation, Dr. Dongwu said simply. After the aliens left, the 3 humans stood alone in the great chamber. The crystal table had stopped glowing red and was now a peaceful blue color. Do you really think they have no idea, Admiral Hyejin asked, about the Mars ruins? About what we found there? Dr. Dongwu shook his head. They think we're a young species with basic technology. They have no clue what humanity has been preparing for. Good, Taemin said. Let's keep it that way. How long until the fleet is ready? 6 hours, Admiral Hyejin replied. Project Pandora is fully operational. All ships are equipped and ready for deployment. Excellent. Taemin looked out at the stars through the great windows. Somewhere out there, the Vorthak fleet was moving toward Council space, confident that nothing could stop them. They had been conquering worlds for 1,000 years, after all. What could possibly challenge them now? They were about to find out. What happened when you awakened a species that had spent 50 years studying the ruins of the last civilization that had tried to fight them? A civilization that had lost the war, but had learned some very important secrets before they died. Secrets that they had hidden in their ruins, waiting for someone smart enough to find them and angry enough to use them. The Vorthak had never faced humans before. They had no idea what they were about to encounter, and by the time they figured it out, it would be far too late to matter. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Vorthak territory like sharks entering bloody water. Captain Seung-ho studied the tactical display on his bridge, showing enemy positions throughout the system. What he saw would have terrified any other species in the galaxy. The Vorthak fleet was enormous beyond imagination. Millions of black ships filled space like a dark cloud, each one the size of a small moon. Their hulls were covered in weapons that could crack planets in half. Energy readings from their quantum devastator cannons made the ship's sensors scream warnings. "Contact," Lieutenant Subin reported from her station. "Vorthak sensors have detected us. They're laughing." The sound that came through the communications system was like grinding metal mixed with breaking glass. It was how the Vorthak expressed amusement. They found the tiny human fleet funny. "Open a channel," Admiral Hyojin ordered calmly. The main screen filled with the image of War Master Keth Mordun, the leader of the Vorthak invasion force. He was a nightmare made real, a creature of black metal and glowing red eyes, with claws that could slice through steel. Behind him, the bridge of his flagship was filled with other Vorthak warriors, all eager for battle. "Small meat creatures," Keth Morden said in a voice like grinding stone. "You interrupt our conquest schedule. This amuses us. Have you come to surrender your worlds personally?" Admiral Hyojin stood straight and looked directly at the alien monster. "This is Admiral Hyojin of the Terran Defense Force. You will cease your advance into Council space immediately and withdraw to your original borders." The sound of Vorthak laughter filled the human bridge. Several young officers winced at the horrible noise, but Admiral Hyojin did not even blink. "You dare give us orders?" Keth Morden's red eyes glowed brighter with anger. "We are the Vorthak. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. We have eaten entire civilizations. What are you compared to us?" "We are what comes next," Captain Sung-ho said quietly from his command chair. Keth Morden focused his attention on the human captain. "Brave words from dead meat. We will devour your world slowly for this insult. Your people will beg for death before we are finished with them." "You may try," Admiral Hyojin replied. Something in her tone made the War Master pause. He had been conquering worlds for centuries, and he knew fear when he heard it. But there was no fear in the human's voice, only calm confidence. It puzzled him. "Very well," Keth Morden growled. "We will make an example of you. Your deaths will teach the Council what happens to those who defy us." The Vorthak fleet began to move. Millions of ships arranged themselves into attack formations, their weapons charging with energy that made space itself bend and twist. The quantum devastator cannons were designed to tear holes in reality, destroying anything they touched by unmaking it from existence. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Chief Engineer Min Ji watched her instruments carefully. "Pandora cores are stable and ready," she reported. "All ships showing green lights." Dr. Dongwu's voice came through the communication system from his laboratory. "Quantum field generators are online. The resonance chambers are tuned to optimal frequency. We are ready to receive their attack." Admiral Hyojin nodded. "All ships, prepare for incoming fire. Execute Protocol 7 on my command." The Vorthak unleashed their weapons. What happened next defied everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare. Beams of pure destruction lanced out from the Vorthak fleet, weapons that had destroyed entire star systems. The quantum devastator cannons fired reality-tearing energy that should have wiped the human fleet from existence. Instead, something impossible occurred. The human ships absorbed the energy completely. Every beam, every quantum torpedo, every reality warping weapon that struck the human fleet simply disappeared into their hulls like water soaking into sand. The ships glowed briefly with blue light, then returned to normal. Not a single human vessel was even scratched. For the first time in 1,000 years of conquest, the Vorthak fleet stopped firing and stared in confusion. "Impossible," War Master Keth Morden whispered. "Nothing can absorb quantum devastator fire. Nothing." On the human ships, the Pandora cores were doing exactly what they had been designed to do. The ancient civilization that had faced the Vorthak before had discovered something very important. The quantum devastator weapons worked by tearing holes in space-time itself. But what the Vorthak had never realized was that those holes could be controlled, redirected, and turned back on their creators. The humans had spent 50 years learning to do exactly that. Dr. Dongwu's voice filled the human fleet's communication. "Network. Project Pandora is now fully active. All ships execute Protocol 7. The human vessels began to glow with that same blue light, but brighter now. Much brighter. Space around them started to bend and twist in ways that hurt to look at. Lieutenant Subin worked frantically at her navigation station. "Quantum distortions are building throughout their fleet," she reported. "The feedback loop is beginning." "Chief," Engineer Minji grinned as she watched her instruments. "The more energy they put into their weapons, the stronger our fields become. It's working exactly like the ancient plans said it would." Admiral Hyejin allowed herself a small smile. "Begin the counterattack." What the humans did next was something no species in the galaxy had ever seen before. They took all the energy that the Vorthak had fired at them and sent it back, but not as simple weapon beams. The Pandora system converted the quantum devastator energy into localized space-time distortions that turned the Vorthak's own weapons against them. Vorthak ships began to simply disappear. Not destroyed, not damaged. Erased from existence by their own weapons turned back on them. The quantum fields that their guns created were now controlled by human technology, and those fields were collapsing inward on the Vorthak fleet itself. "Impossible!" Keth Morden screamed. "How do you possess the Destroyer's Bane?" The Destroyer's Bane. That was what the ancient civilization had called their anti-Vorthak technology. War Master Keth Morden recognized it because the Vorthak had encountered it once before, millions of years ago. They had barely managed to destroy that civilization before it could build enough ships to threaten them. Now they were facing it again. And this time the enemy was ready. Captain Minho of the HTSS Defiant reported from his position in the fleet's second wave. "Admiral, their entire third battle group just vanished. The quantum cascade is spreading through their formation." "Confirmed," Lieutenant Commander Jae Sung added from the HTSS Retribution. "Whatever they fire at us just makes the effect stronger. They're trapped in their own quantum field." Admiral Hyejin watched the tactical display as huge sections of the Vorthak fleet simply ceased to exist. The aliens had walked into a trap that had been millions of years in the making. Every shot they fired made the human ships stronger. Every weapon they used was turned against them. "Signal the War Master," Admiral Hyejin ordered. Keth Morden's image reappeared on the screen. But now his red eyes showed something the galaxy had never seen from a Vorthak before. Fear. "What are you?" he demanded. "How do you know the ancient technologies?" "We are what happens when a species has time to prepare," Admiral Hyajin replied calmly. "We are what happens when someone learns from history instead of repeating it." "This is impossible. We destroyed the destroyer civilization. We wiped them from existence." "Yes, you did," Dr. Dongwu's voice cut in from the laboratory. "But they left their knowledge behind for someone else to find. Thank you for giving us 50 years to study it." The quantum cascade was spreading faster now. Whole sections of the Vorthak fleet were being consumed by the space-time distortions their own weapons had created. The aliens tried to retreat, but the quantum fields had made hyperspace impossible. They were trapped in a growing bubble of twisted space-time with no way out. War Master Keth Morden made one final transmission before his flagship was consumed by the cascade. "This cannot be the end. The Vorthak have conquered for 1,000 years. We are eternal." "Nothing is eternal," Captain Seong-ho replied quietly. The last of the Vorthak fleet disappeared into the quantum distortion, leaving only empty space and strange energy readings that would puzzle scientists for centuries to come. The human fleet hung alone in space, their ships glowing softly with residual energy from the Pandora cores. Around them, where millions of enemy vessels had been, there was nothing but the slowly fading remnants of twisted space-time. "All ships report in," Admiral Haijin ordered. One by one, the human captains confirmed that their vessels were undamaged and their crews were safe. 200 ships had faced millions and one without losing a single person. "Send a message to the Council," Admiral Hyajin said. "Tell them the Vorthak threat has been eliminated." As the message was transmitted, several bridge officers exchanged glances. They had just done the impossible. They had defeated an enemy that had been conquering worlds since before human civilization existed. But none of them looked surprised or excited. They had known it would work. The ancient civilization had given them the key to victory, and humanity had spent decades preparing to use it. This had never been a desperate last stand or a suicide mission. It had been an execution. The message from Admiral He-jin reached the Galactic Council headquarters exactly 18 hours after the human fleet had left for what everyone assumed was certain death. The communication officer who received it stared at his screen for a full minute before he could make himself believe what he was reading. "The Vorthak invasion fleet has been completely eliminated. All enemy vessels destroyed. Human casualties, 0. The threat to Council space no longer exists. Admiral Hyajin, Terran Defense Force." The communication officer read it 3 more times, then ran it through every verification system he could think of. The message was real. The quantum signature matched the human fleet's communication codes. The timestamp showed it had been sent from deep in Vorthak territory, but it was impossible. Within an hour, emergency sessions were being called on every council world. The great chamber that had been empty and hopeless just days before was now packed with delegates who had rushed back from across the galaxy. The crystal table in the center glowed bright white with excitement and confusion. Ambassador Ji-woo stood at her seat, holding a data pad that contained the complete battle report Admiral Hyajin had transmitted. Her blue skin was pale with shock, and her hands were shaking slightly as she read. "According to this report," she said in a voice barely above a whisper, "the human fleet engaged the Vorthak invasion force at 14:30 Galactic Standard Time. The battle lasted exactly 6 hours and 12 minutes. At the end of that time, the entire Vorthak fleet had been destroyed." Veltharian's tentacles writhed nervously. His skin markings were flashing between different colors so fast that the translator could barely keep up. Destroyed how? What weapons could possibly— That's just it, Ji-Woo interrupted. According to the report, the humans didn't use conventional weapons at all. They absorbed the Vorthak's quantum devastator fire and somehow turned it back on. Them! The chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates from 12 different species all started talking at once, their voices mixing into a babel of confusion and disbelief. Impossible. Quantum devastators cannot be absorbed. No technology exists that could— The humans must be lying. But where is the Vorthak fleet then? Ambassador Tae-min sat quietly in the human section, watching the aliens argue. He had returned to the council station just an hour ago, and his calm expression had not changed since he walked into the chamber. Behind him sat Dr. Dongwoo, still wearing that gentle smile that made so many delegates uncomfortable. Ambassador Tae-min, Veltharion called out, his voice cutting through the noise. Surely you can explain what happened. This report reads like science fiction. Tae-min stood slowly and walked to the center of the chamber. The noise died down as everyone focused on him. He looked exactly the same as he had a week ago. Calm, confident, unremarkable. But now there was something else in his eyes that made several delegates step back. The report is accurate, Tae-min said simply. The Vorthak fleet has been eliminated. The threat to council space no longer exists. But how? Demanded the Alterian delegate, his energy form flickering with agitation. Our greatest weapons could barely scratch their hulls. How did you destroy millions of their ships? We didn't destroy them, Dr. Dongwoo said, speaking for the first time since entering the chamber. We simply turned their own weapons against them. The Vorthak destroyed themselves. That's impossible. The crystalline delegate's voice was sharp with disbelief. Quantum devastator weapons cannot be redirected or absorbed. The energy levels alone would vaporize any ship that tried. Dr. Dongwoo's smile got a little wider. You're thinking too small. We didn't absorb the energy. We absorbed the quantum distortions themselves and used them to create localized space-time cascades. The words meant nothing to most of the delegates. No species in the council had technology that could manipulate space-time directly. Even the ancient Alterians, with all their mastery of energy, could only bend space a little bit for faster than light. Travel. What Dr. Dongwoo is describing, said the Alterian delegate slowly, would require technology more advanced than anything in the known galaxy. Where did humanity acquire such capabilities? We developed them, Tae-min replied calmly. In 50 years? Veltharion's tentacles were now writhing so fast they were almost a blur. You expect us to believe that a species barely past its first industrial revolution somehow developed technology that surpasses civilizations millions of years old? Why is that hard to believe? Dr. Dongwoo asked with mock innocence. After all, you just told us that we destroyed the most powerful military force in galactic history. Clearly, we're more capable than you thought. Ambassador Ji-Woo had been studying her data pad during this exchange, and now she looked up with a strange expression on her face. The mining rights, she said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. What about them? Tae-min asked. The Kepler 442 system. You asked for exclusive mining rights there as payment for taking on the Vorthak. But that system contains quantum crystalline formations, the kind that would be needed to build— She paused, her eyes going wide. The kind that would be needed to build space-time manipulation devices. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Dr. Dongwoo chuckled softly. Very good, Ambassador. You're starting to understand. You already had the technology, Jiwoo breathed. Before you ever agreed to fight the Vorthok, you were planning this. Planning what? Veltharion demanded. Expansion, Taemin said simply. Humanity is growing, and we need resources. The Kepler 442 system will provide excellent raw materials for our next generation of ships. Next generation? The words came out as a squeak from the small, gaseous delegate. How many more ships like the ones that destroyed the Vorthak can you build? As many as we need, Dr. Dongwu replied cheerfully. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop several degrees. Delegates began looking at each other with new expressions, not gratitude toward their saviors, but growing fear of what they had just empowered. Captain Seung Ho's image appeared on the main display screen, transmitted from the returning human fleet. Greetings from the Terran Defense Force, he said with professional courtesy. We are pleased to report that the mission was successful. The Vorthak threat has been permanently eliminated. Captain, Veltharion said carefully, what are your fleet's current orders? We are returning to Council space to begin our new duties as galactic peacekeepers, Captain Seung Ho replied. With the inner circle authority granted to humanity, we will be taking a more active role in maintaining security throughout the galaxy. Several delegates started to protest, but Captain Seung Ho continued speaking. Our first priority will be establishing patrol routes through all major shipping lanes. Any vessel that threatens peaceful commerce will be dealt with appropriately. Dealt with how? Jiwoo asked, though she was afraid she already knew the answer. The same way we dealt with the Vorthak, Admiral Hyjin's voice cut in as she joined the transmission. Quickly and permanently. The chamber was now completely silent, except for the quiet hum of the translation system. Every delegate was staring at the human representatives with new understanding. They had not gained powerful allies. They had created something much more dangerous. There is one more thing, Taemin said conversationally. The diplomatic immunity we requested for human vessels. That will now include the right to inspect any ship or facility we deem necessary for galactic security. Inspect for what? Veltharion asked in a hollow voice. Threats, Dr. Dongwu replied with that same unsettling smile. Weapons of mass destruction, illegal research, unauthorized military buildup, the usual things that require monitoring. The implications were staggering. Human ships with technology that could destroy entire fleets would now have the right to go anywhere and inspect anything they wanted. And if they found something they didn't like, what have we done? Jiwoo whispered, but her microphone was still active, and her words echoed through the chamber. Ambassador Taemin looked directly at her. You have survived, he said simply. The Vorthok would have killed you all. We saved you. The price was very reasonable. The price, Jiwoo repeated slowly, was our independence. Did we ask you to surrender your independence? Taemin looked genuinely confused. All we asked for was mining rights, diplomatic immunity, and a council seat. Very modest demands. And the right to patrol our space with ships that can erase entire fleets from existence, the Alterian delegate added bitterly. Someone has to maintain order, Dr. Dongwu said reasonably. The galaxy is a dangerous place. There might be other threats out there that require handling. As the transmission ended and the humans left the chamber, the remaining delegates sat in stunned silence. They had asked humanity to save them from the Vorthak, and humanity had delivered exactly what they requested. The threat was gone. The galaxy was safe, and human casualties had been zero. But now they understood the real price of their salvation. They had not just gained protectors. They had awakened something that had been hiding its true nature for 50 years. Something that had been quietly preparing for this moment while everyone else thought they were just another minor species. The message from Admiral He Jin reached the Galactic Council headquarters exactly 18 hours after the human fleet had left for what everyone assumed was certain death. The communication officer who received it stared at his screen for a full minute before he could make himself believe what he was reading. The Vorthak invasion fleet has been completely eliminated. All enemy vessels destroyed. Human casualties, 0. The threat to Council space no longer exists. Admiral He Jin, Terran Defense Force. The communication officer read it 3 more times, then ran it through every verification system he could think of. The message was real. The quantum signature matched the human fleet's communication codes. The timestamp showed it had been sent from deep in Vorthak territory, but it was impossible. Within an hour, emergency sessions were being called on every council world. The great chamber that had been empty and hopeless just days before was now packed with delegates who had rushed back from across the galaxy. The crystal table in the center glowed bright white with excitement and confusion. Ambassador Ji Woo stood at her seat, holding a data pad that contained the complete battle report Admiral He Jin had transmitted. Her blue skin was pale with shock, and her hands were shaking slightly as she read. "According to this report," she said in a voice barely above a whisper, "the human fleet engaged the Vorthak invasion force at 14:30 Galactic Standard Time. The battle lasted exactly 6 hours and 12 minutes. At the end of that time, the entire Vorthak fleet had been destroyed." Veltharian's tentacles writhed nervously. His skin markings were flashing between different colors so fast that the translator could barely keep up. Destroyed how? What weapons could possibly— "That's just it," Ji Woo interrupted. "According to the report, the humans didn't use conventional weapons at all. They absorbed the Vorthak's quantum devastator fire and somehow turned it back on. Them!" The chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates from 12 different species all started talking at once, their voices mixing into a babel of confusion and disbelief. "Impossible. Quantum devastators cannot be absorbed. No technology exists that could— The humans must be lying. But where is the Vorthak fleet then?" Ambassador Tae Min sat quietly in the human section, watching the aliens argue. He had returned to the council station just an hour ago, and his calm expression had not changed since he walked into the chamber. Behind him sat Dr. Dongwu, still wearing that gentle smile that made so many delegates uncomfortable. "Ambassador Tae Min," Veltharian called out, his voice cutting through the noise. "Surely you can explain what happened. This report reads like science fiction." Tae Min stood slowly and walked to the center of the chamber. The noise died down as everyone focused on him. He looked exactly the same as he had a week ago. Calm, confident, unremarkable. But now there was something else in his eyes that made several delegates step back. "The report is accurate," Tae Min said simply. "The Vorthak fleet has been eliminated. The threat to Council space no longer exists." "But how?" demanded the Alterian delegate, his energy form flickering with agitation. "Our greatest weapons could barely scratch their hulls. How did you destroy millions of their ships?" "We didn't destroy them," Dr. Dongwu said, speaking for the first time since entering the chamber. "We simply turned their own weapons against them. The Vorthak destroyed themselves." "That's impossible!" The crystalline delegate's voice was sharp with disbelief. "Quantum devastator weapons cannot be redirected or absorbed. The energy levels alone would vaporize any ship that tried. Dr. Dongwu's smile got a little wider. You're thinking too small. We didn't absorb the energy. We absorbed the quantum distortions themselves and used them to create localized space-time cascades. The words meant nothing to most of the delegates. No species in the Council had technology that could manipulate space-time directly. Even the ancient Alterians, with all their mastery of energy, could only bend space a little bit for faster than light. Travel. What Dr. Dongwu is describing, said the Alterian delegate slowly, would require technology more advanced than anything in the known galaxy. Where did humanity acquire such capabilities? We developed them, Taemin replied calmly. In 50 years? Veltharian's tentacles were now writhing so fast they were almost a blur. You expect us to believe that a species barely past its first industrial revolution somehow developed technology that surpasses civilizations millions of years old? Why is that hard to believe? Dr. Dongwu asked with mock innocence. After all, you just told us that we destroyed the most powerful military force in galactic history. Clearly, we're more capable than you thought. Ambassador Ji Woo had been studying her data pad during this exchange, and now she looked up with a strange expression on her face. The mining rights, she said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. What about them? Taemin asked. The Kepler 442 system. You asked for exclusive mining rights there as payment for taking on the Vorthak. But that system contains quantum crystalline formations, the kind that would be needed to build... She paused, her eyes going wide. The kind that would be needed to build space-time manipulation devices. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Dr. Dongwu chuckled softly. Very good, Ambassador. You're starting to understand. You already had the technology, Jiwoo breathed. Before you ever agreed to fight the Vorthak, you were planning this. Planning what? Veltharian demanded. Expansion, Taemin said simply. Humanity is growing, and we need resources. The Kepler 442 system will provide excellent raw materials for our next generation of ships. Next generation? The words came out as a squeak from the small, gaseous delegate. How many more ships like the ones that destroyed the Vorthak can you build? As many as we need, Dr. Dongwu replied cheerfully. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop several degrees. Delegates began looking at each other with new expressions. Not gratitude toward their saviors, but growing fear of what they had just empowered. Captain Seung Ho's image appeared on the main display screen, transmitted from the returning human fleet. Greetings from the Terran Defense Force, he said with professional courtesy. We are pleased to report that the mission was successful. The Vorthak threat has been permanently eliminated. Captain, Veltharian said carefully, what are your fleet's current orders? We are returning to Council space to begin our new duties as galactic peacekeepers, Captain Seung Ho replied. With the Inner Circle authority granted to humanity, we will be taking a more active role in maintaining security throughout the galaxy. Several delegates started to protest, but Captain Seung Ho continued speaking. Our first priority will be establishing patrol routes through all major shipping lanes. Any vessel that threatens peaceful commerce will be dealt with appropriately. Dealt with how? Jiwoo asked, though she was afraid she already knew the answer. The same way we dealt with the Vorthak. Admiral Hyjin's voice cut in as she joined the transmission. Quickly and permanently. The chamber was now completely silent, except for the quiet hum of the translation system. Every delegate was staring at the human representatives with new understanding. They had not gained powerful allies. They had created something much more dangerous. "There is one more thing," Taemin said conversationally. "The diplomatic immunity we requested for human vessels. That will now include the right to inspect any ship or facility we deem necessary for galactic security." "Inspect for what?" Veltharion asked in a hollow voice. "Threats," Dr. Dongwu replied with that same unsettling smile. "Weapons of mass destruction, illegal research, unauthorized military buildup, the usual things that require monitoring." The implications were staggering. Human ships with technology that could destroy entire fleets would now have the right to go anywhere and inspect anything they wanted. And if they found something they didn't like, "What have we done?" Jiwoo whispered. But her microphone was still active, and her words echoed through the chamber. Ambassador Taemin looked directly at her. "You have survived," he said simply. "The Vorthok would have killed you all. We saved you. The price was very reasonable." "The price," Jiwoo repeated slowly, "was our independence. Did we ask you to surrender your independence?" Taemin looked genuinely confused. "All we asked for was mining rights, diplomatic immunity, and a council seat. Very modest demands. And the right to patrol our space with ships that can erase entire fleets from existence," the Alterian delegate added bitterly. "Someone has to maintain order," Dr. Dongwu said reasonably. "The galaxy is a dangerous place. There might be other threats out there that require handling." As the transmission ended and the humans left the chamber, the remaining delegates sat in stunned silence. They had asked humanity to save them from the Vorthak, and humanity had delivered exactly what they requested. The threat was gone. The galaxy was safe, and human casualties had been zero. But now they understood the real price of their salvation. They had not just gained protectors. They had awakened something that had been hiding its true nature for 50 years. Something that had been quietly preparing for this moment while everyone else thought they were just another minor species. 6 months after the Vorthak fleet disappeared into quantum distortions, the galaxy had settled into an uneasy new normal. Human mining operations in the Kepler 442 system had expanded beyond all reasonable expectations. What had started as a small extraction facility was now a massive industrial complex that could be seen from 3 star systems away. Dr. Dongwu stood on the observation deck of the primary mining station, watching enormous ships carry refined quantum crystals toward the construction yards. Behind him, holographic displays showed the progress of humanity's shipbuilding program. The numbers would have terrified the Council if they knew about them. "Production is ahead of schedule," reported Dr. Young-Soo, his assistant. "We're completing 2 new ships every week now. The quantum crystal reserves are more extensive than we originally estimated." "Excellent," Dr. Dongwu replied. "And the new designs?" "The Mark 7 ships are ready for testing. Each one carries 3 times the Pandora capacity of the original fleet. Chief Engineer Minji says they can create quantum distortions large, enough to affect entire star systems." Dr. Dongwu smiled. Humanity had saved the galaxy from the Vorthak, but that didn't mean they were going to stop building weapons. The universe was a dangerous place after all. There might be other threats out there that required proper handling. Back in Council space, the first real crisis of the New Order was unfolding. An Alterian research vessel had attempted to scan one of the human mining facilities using deep probe sensors. It was routine scientific curiosity. The Alterians wanted to understand how humans were processing quantum crystals so efficiently. The scanning ship had simply vanished. Admiral Hyejin received the angry transmission from the Alterian Republic while she was reviewing patrol schedules in her office aboard the HTSS Indomitable. The Alterian ambassador's energy form was flickering rapidly with rage. "You destroyed a scientific vessel!" the ambassador screamed. "It was conducting legitimate research." The vessel was scanning a classified human facility without permission. Admiral Hyejin replied calmly. "Such actions constitute espionage and are met with appropriate responses." "Appropriate responses? You murdered 37 researchers." "We defended our sovereign territory," Admiral Hyejin corrected. "The Kepler 442 system is under human control, as agreed to by the Council. Unauthorized intrusions are not permitted." "This is insane. We demand an explanation. What could you possibly be doing that requires such extreme secrecy?" Admiral Hyejin looked directly into the communication screen. "We are building ships. The galaxy is a dangerous place, and humanity has a responsibility to maintain order. Our methods and capabilities are classified for security reasons." The transmission ended with the Alterian ambassador making sounds that the translator couldn't convert. Admiral Hyejin made a note to increase security patrols around human facilities. Curiosity was natural, but it couldn't be allowed to interfere with important work. Meanwhile, the galaxy's shipping lanes were experiencing their own changes. Human escort fleets had taken over protection duties for the most valuable cargo routes, and their fees were not cheap. But merchants paid willingly because human-protected convoys never lost a single ship to pirates or raiders. Captain Min Ho commanded one of these escort fleets from his flagship, the HTSS Guardian. His small squadron of 6 ships was currently protecting a convoy carrying rare metals from the Centauri mining worlds to the manufacturing centers near the galactic core. "Contact on long-range sensors," reported Lieutenant Day Wan from the tactical station. 3 ships moving to intercept the convoy. Configuration matches known pirate vessels." Captain Min Ho studied the display. The pirates were using stolen military ships probably taken from some minor species defense force. Their weapons were decent but nothing special. Against normal escort ships, they might have had a chance. Against human ships, they were already dead. "Signal the pirates," Captain Min Ho ordered. "Give them one chance to withdraw." "Sir, they're demanding that the convoy drop their cargo and surrender," Lieutenant Day Wan reported. "They say they have friends coming and we're outnumbered." "How unfortunate for them," Captain Min Ho said quietly. "All ships, prepare for engagement. Make it quick." The pirate ships opened fire first, launching everything they had at the human escorts. Plasma cannons, missile swarms, even a few quantum torpedoes that they had probably stolen from a military depot. The weapons struck the human ships and simply disappeared, absorbed into the hulls like water soaking into sand. The human response was swift and final. The pirates' own weapons energy was redirected back at them through localized quantum distortions. All 3 ships ceased to exist in less than 30 seconds. "Send a message to the convoy," Captain Min Ho ordered. "All threats eliminated. Proceed to destination." The convoy captain's reply came back immediately. "Thank you for your protection. Payment will be transferred upon arrival." It was good business. The merchants got safe passage, humanity got paid, and pirates learned to avoid human-protected convoys. Everyone won except the criminals. Word of incidents like these spread quickly through the galaxy's communication networks. Human ships were not just powerful, they were untouchable. No weapon in the known galaxy could harm them. Pirates, raiders, and even legitimate military forces began to give human vessels a very wide berth. But it was the inspection rights that really changed things. Commander Subin led the first official inspection mission 3 months after the Vorthak victory. Her target was a research station operated by a consortium of minor species in a system near the galactic rim. Intelligence reports suggested they were experimenting with quantum weapons technology. This is the HTSS investigator. Requesting permission to dock and conduct a security inspection, Commander Subin transmitted to the research station. We have done nothing wrong, came the nervous reply from the station commander. Our research is purely civilian in nature. I'm sure it is, Commander Subin replied politely. The inspection is routine. Please prepare your research logs and facility manifests for review. The inspection team that boarded the station included Dr. Dongwu's top weapons experts and quantum specialists. What they found was exactly what they had expected: a secret weapons development program designed to reverse engineer Vorthak technology from battle debris. Interesting research, Dr. Dongwu commented as he reviewed their files. Quantum field manipulation, space-time distortion generators, reality-tearing weapons, very ambitious for a civilian facility. The station commander, a nervous insectoid, creature with too many eyes, tried to explain. We were only trying to understand the technology. After seeing what you did to the Vorthak, we thought perhaps we could develop defenses. Defenses against what? Dr. Dongwu asked with that gentle smile that never reached his eyes. The galaxy is at peace. Humanity ensures that peace is maintained. But what if there are other threats? What if something happens to humanity? Dr. Dongwu's smile faded slightly. Are you suggesting that something might happen to us? No. No, of course not. We were just being prepared. Preparation is wise, Dr. Dongwu agreed. But weapons research requires proper oversight. This facility will be shut down immediately. All research materials will be confiscated for security review. You can't do that. This is sovereign territory. Actually, we can. Commander Subin showed him a datapad containing the council agreements. Human vessels have complete diplomatic immunity and inspection rights throughout council space. This facility poses a potential threat to galactic security. The research station was evacuated within 6 hours. Its quantum laboratories were stripped down to the bare walls, and all the scientists were relocated to safer positions elsewhere in the galaxy. The quantum weapons research simply disappeared, along with the people who understood it. Similar inspections began happening throughout council space. Any facility that seemed to be developing advanced weapons technology received a visit from human inspectors. Most were shut down. A few were allowed to continue under joint oversight, which meant human scientists would now be watching everything they did. Ambassador Jiwoo watched these developments with growing alarm from her office on the Centauri, capital world. Reports crossed her desk daily about human activities throughout the galaxy: mining operations, patrol fleets, inspection teams, construction projects. Humanity was expanding its presence everywhere. "They're taking over," she said to Captain Minsu during one of their private meetings. "Slowly, quietly, but completely. In another year, there won't be a single star system where humans don't have some kind of presence." "What can we do about it?" Captain Minsu asked. "They saved us from the Vorthak. They're keeping the peace. Their inspection teams are preventing weapons proliferation. Everything they're doing is legal under the agreements we signed." "That's exactly the problem," Jiwoo replied. "They're not breaking any laws. They're following the agreements perfectly. They're just interpreting them in ways we never imagined." She pulled up a holographic map of the galaxy. Human symbols were scattered across it like a disease spreading through healthy tissue. Mining. 9 months after the Vorthak defeat, the Galactic Council chamber looked very different than it had during the emergency session that started everything. The crystal table still sat in the center, but now additional seats had been added around. Human representatives now attended every session, and their quiet presence changed the entire atmosphere of council meetings. Ambassador Tae-min sat in his new position as a member of the inner circle, reviewing the day's agenda on his data pad. Next to him, Dr. Dongwoo was making notes about various research projects that would require security oversight. Captain Seung-ho attended virtually, his image projected from the bridge of his patrol ship somewhere in the outer rim. The current debate was about trade regulations for quantum technologies. Several species wanted to modify the restrictions that limited research into space-time manipulation. They argued that such research was necessary for scientific advancement and economic development. The current restrictions are too broad, complained the delegate from the Zephyrian colonies. His insectoid features twitched with frustration. We cannot even research basic quantum mechanics without human approval. How are we supposed to advance our civilization? Veltharion supported the complaint, his tentacles waving in agreement. Many of our brightest scientists have been forced to abandon promising research projects. The galaxy's scientific progress has slowed significantly. Ambassador Tae-min looked up from his datapad with that same calm expression he always wore. The restrictions exist for security reasons. Quantum technology can easily be weaponized. Humanity has a responsibility to prevent another Vorthak-type threat from emerging. But we're not trying to build weapons, protested the crystalline delegate. We're studying basic principles of physics. How can that be dangerous? Dr. Dongwoo answered with his gentle smile. Understanding quantum principles is the first step toward building quantum weapons. History shows us that scientific knowledge inevitably becomes military technology. We're simply preventing that progression. Ambassador Ji-woo had been quiet during most of the session, but now she stood up. Over the past months, she had become something of a spokesperson for the growing opposition to human policies. With respect, she began carefully, the restrictions go beyond preventing weapons development. Human inspection teams have shut down civilian research projects, confiscated scientific equipment, and relocated researchers who posed no military threat whatsoever. All actions were taken in accordance with galactic security protocols. Captain Seung-ho's image replied from the screen. Threats to peace must be identified and neutralized before they become dangerous. Who decides what constitutes a threat? Ji-woo asked pointedly. We do, Ambassador Tae-min answered simply. The room fell silent at the blunt honesty of his response. For months, the humans had been careful to justify their actions in terms of council agreements and security protocols. This was the first time one of them had admitted that they were making unilateral decisions about the fate of other species. That's exactly the problem, Ji-woo continued, her voice getting stronger. Humanity has assumed the right to make decisions for the entire galaxy. You decide what research can be conducted, what trade routes are secure, what facilities can operate. When did we agree to give you that authority? You gave us that authority when you begged us to save you from the Vorthak, Dr. Dongwoo replied, and for the first time his smile looked less friendly. You were facing extinction, and you asked us to handle the threat. We handled it. We asked you to fight the Vorthak, Veltharion interrupted, his skin markings flashing angry colors. We didn't ask you to take over the galaxy. Did we take over? Ambassador Taemin asked with genuine curiosity. Your governments still function. Your people still live on their homeworlds. Your trade continues to operate. What exactly have we taken? Our freedom, Ji-woo said quietly. Freedom to do what? Captain Seung-ho's image leaned forward. Freedom to develop weapons that could threaten galactic peace? Freedom to ignore security protocols? Freedom to repeat the mistakes that led to the Vorthak crisis in the first place? The debate was escalating beyond normal diplomatic protocols. Other delegates began to speak up, some supporting the human position, others agreeing with Ji-woo's concerns. The chamber filled with the noise of multiple species arguing in their own languages. But the real breaking point came when the delegate from the Flothan Empire made an announcement that changed everything. The Flothan Empire has decided to withdraw from certain council agreements, the gaseous being declared. His voice was transmitted through his containment field's speaker system. We no longer recognize human inspection rights within our territory. Effective immediately, all human vessels are banned from Flothan space. The chamber fell absolutely silent. This was the first time any species had directly challenged human authority since the Vorthak defeat. Ambassador Taemin looked at the Flothan delegate with the same calm expression, but now there was something cold in his eyes. That would be inadvisable. Are you threatening us? The Flothan delegate demanded. I'm simply pointing out the consequences of your decision, Taemin replied. The Flothan Empire benefits from human protection services. Your trade routes are secured by our patrol fleets. Your worlds are protected from external threats by our defense network. Withdrawing from these agreements would leave you vulnerable. We are willing to accept that risk, the Flothan delegate said, though his voice wavered slightly. Dr. Dongwu pulled out his datapad and made some notes. Very well. All human patrol ships will be withdrawn from Flothan space immediately. All protection services will be terminated. All security guarantees will be voided. Additionally, Captain Seung-ho added, Flothan vessels will no longer be permitted to travel through human-controlled shipping lanes. This includes the primary trade routes to the galactic core. The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. The Flothan Empire's economy was based on trade. Cutting them off from the main shipping lanes would be devastating. But it was the next announcement that really drove the message home. The Kepler 442 mining operation will also cease all quantum crystal sales to Flothan customers, Dr. Dongwu added casually. We wouldn't want our strategic materials falling into potentially hostile hands. Without quantum crystals, the Flothan couldn't power their most advanced technologies. Without protection, their trade ships would be vulnerable to pirates and raiders. Without access to major shipping lanes, their economy would collapse within months. The Flothan delegate's containment field flickered as his species' equivalent of panic set in. You cannot do this. This is economic warfare. This is the natural consequence of severing diplomatic relationships, Ambassador Taemin explained patiently. You chose to end our agreements. We're simply honoring your decision. But our people will suffer. Then perhaps you should reconsider your decision. The other delegates watched this exchange with growing horror. They were seeing humanity's true power displayed for the first time. It wasn't just their military might. It was their complete integration into every aspect of galactic civilization. They had made themselves indispensable, and now anyone who challenged them faced economic and political isolation. This is extortion, Ji-woo said, her voice filled with disgust. This is reality, Dr. Dongwu replied. The galaxy depends on human services for security, trade, and technological advancement. Those who choose to end that relationship must accept the consequences. The Flothan delegate was frantically consulting with his government through encrypted channels. Within 10 minutes, he had his answer. The Flothan Empire withdraws its withdrawal, he announced reluctantly. We will continue to honor all council agreements and welcome human inspection teams back to our territory. Excellent, Ambassador Taemin said with satisfaction. I'm sure this was all just a misunderstanding, but the damage was done. Every delegate in the chamber now understood exactly how trapped they were. Humanity had woven itself so deeply into galactic civilization that challenging them was economic suicide. They controlled the shipping lanes, the quantum crystal supply, the protection services, and the weapons inspection protocols. They had become the essential infrastructure that kept the galaxy running, and they had done it all legally, with the full cooperation of the very governments they now controlled. After the session ended, Ji-Woo found herself alone with Ambassador Taemin in the corridor outside the chamber. She needed to know something, even if the answer terrified her. Was this always the plan? She asked quietly. When you first arrived at the council 50 years ago, were you already planning this? Takeover? Taemin considered the question for a moment. Do you know what we found when we first explored beyond our solar system? No. Ruins. Everywhere we looked, we found the remains of dead civilizations. Worlds that had been stripped bare. Populations that had been consumed. Entire species that had been wiped from existence. He paused. All by the same enemy, the Vorthak. The Vorthak were just the latest in a long line of galactic predators. Before them, there were others. After them, there would have been more. The galaxy is a dangerous place, Ambassador Ji-Woo. Someone has to